You need to speak with one voice. And we are hearing it from Minister Gayton McKenzie. You need to speak with one voice. And we are saying to them, we beg of you, the sheep and the wolves cannot speak with one voice.
Having clauses like you are not allowed to be part of a guild or any union.
Never.
Make that make sense.
Never.
In contract.
In a contract.
That's a Trump move.
It goes against
Yep.
our constitution.
Kagiso Modupe became a member of SAGA on the 1st of January 2017, and he terminated his membership on the 30th of April 2018. So while SAGA has been around for 15 years, Kagiso Modupe was a member for 15 months.
But I've been paid, and I went away. They brought us up again because they needed someone to blame. I went out of my way to make sure that they had an advantage by having me on their show, not the other way around.
King David Studio Podcast.
I have in the studio representatives of SAGA. It's Jack Devnarain, who is a famous actor. I'm sure you'll recognize him almost immediately, who's the chairperson of SAGA. And also Hungani Ndlovu, who's in media and communication. He's here to make sure you don't say wrong things.
I'm glad you said that.
The policeman needs policing.
I hope you guys are well.
Yes. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. We were brought together today because of an interview I did with Kagiso. And in some way, this is a reaction to that. But I don't want to start there, if you bear with me. I want to start with the real reason why the South African Guild of Actors, am I correct?
Yeah.
Why it exists in the first place. Let's start with the police.
Wow. Firstly, thanks for that question. I think it's very important for us to understand why we exist and the importance. At face value, we complain about many things. We've heard actors complain. We've read about actors complaining. We see actors pass away and then we complain. So we've seen the story play out in different ways many a times. And the purpose of the guild is essentially to represent professional actors within the TV, theater, film, commercial, and corporate sectors. That is from voice to you acting in front of the camera to you acting on the stage. The things that we tackle are things like your rights as an actor, compensation, health and safety on set, sexual harassment. The list goes on and on. The main reason we are here as a guild is because there is no law that protects us. There is nothing that is there to protect the actor.
He says, Jack, that there's no law that protects actors. Isn't it that the assumption that actors are workers like everyone and they are protected by basic labor-related laws?
People make that assumption. I've even met people working in the Department of Employment and Labor who assume that. And that is, it's one of the biggest mistakes that we make, and it's also the stumbling block to why we cannot transform the creative sector. People make the assumption that actors are workers, actors are protected under labor laws, actors can unionize. All of that is completely untrue. And it is critically important that we have to address that myth. So I wonder if you remember in 2019, Vatiswa Ndaga.
She's been here.
Oh,
we
wonderful.
recorded for 5 hours.
Oh.
So trust me, I have a very good grasp of her story.
She was an absolutely courageous woman, because in 2019, when she was having difficulty in negotiating her contract with the producers, she brought to light some of the deficiencies that we have as freelance actors. And some of those deficiencies include the right that, but why don't we have standard contracts? Why don't we have standard rate or minimum rates? Why aren't we given an opportunity to ask for leave? Or maternity leave, sick leave. Why is it that we are not given the right to bargain collectively? And all of that is because in South Africa, this is an unregulated creative sector. We do not have recognition under labor laws. We are not formalized as a real industry should be. We are not aligned with the rest of the world. We do not have the right to unionize or to engage in industrial action like, sit in, picket, strike. We don't have
We've
any
seen
of that.
some of that during COVID, but carry on.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's the biggest project that Saga is dealing with is to try to get government to understand if you don't give us worker rights, protection under labor laws, we will never be able to transform the industry to bring equality, to bring fairness, and to prevent gross exploitation that is taking place right now.
Help me understand why you don't get what is regarded as just automatic protection by the labor laws. Shouldn't it be assumed immediately that actors are workers like everyone else? And the assumption should be that, well, if there is no specific written law for this sector, automatically, if we were to go to CCMA or court or anything, you would then say, okay, what labor laws do we have in this country? Let us take those and see if they will automatically apply in this case. Help me understand why isn't it automatic?
We do have a wonderful Bill of Rights. And our Bill of Rights guarantees us certain fundamental rights. And if you look at Section 23 of the Bill of Rights, you will find that everyone, doesn't matter whether they are a worker or not, has the right to belong to a trade union and to be protected under labor laws. That's a fundamental right. So if you look then at the Constitution and then you compare it to those labor laws, you'll find that those labor laws specifically excludes freelancers. So there's a disconnect between what the Constitution gives us and what labor laws give us. And people don't know how many labor laws there are and how strong they are. You've got the basic conditions of employment, the Labor Relations Act, employment equity, compensation for occupational injuries and diseases, national minimum wage. You've got all these labor laws, and they simply do not apply to freelancers, which is also why we can't go to the CCMA when there's a dispute.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You can't.
We cannot. That's for employees.
And you're not an employee.
We
you're
are
a
not
freelance.
employees. We're freelancer, yeah.
Earlier, you spoke about the people you represent, Ndlovu, and you made reference to actors. There's also those that work with lights and jibby jibs and all of that.
Yeah, the crew.
The crew. Are they represented by Saga?
The crew is not represented by Saga. But most of the time in our being vocal for actors, the word crew and the people who are crew very much follows through because they are also very much exploited themselves.
Absolutely.
I mean, even in some of the instances that they experience as crew members, whether it's a DOP, whether it's a gaffer, they'll sometimes even message us to see if we can help. And our mandate is to help our members, which are actors, professional actors. So that is how we can't necessarily help, but we do lend a helping hand where we can.
Don't you think that, and I say this because I work with a lot of crews, and very often you realize that these guys are in the same exact boat.
100%.
Both those in front and behind the cameras.
100%.
They suffer the same challenges. They're literally people playing, if we use a soccer analogy, they're playing on the same playing field.
Yeah.
You know, one can say we're better off. And I remember when there was a shoot here in this very studio, and the guys who booked the studio said to me, no, they're going to eat at the same place. Don't worry. Don't separate, because they are the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't it something that you would work towards having as part of what you do?
There are conversations happening, and
Yeah.
Jack can definitely speak into that a bit more.
It is a real thing because remember, we had to create an organization by actors for actors. And we felt this is the core group. Beyond that, does that mean anyone needs less protection? Does that mean anyone is any less vulnerable? You know, we know that ultimately we have to have a vision for the creative sector that includes protection for everyone, cast and crew, and don't forget background actors as well. And as long as we have an unregulated sector, the people who are vulnerable are going to get roasted. Those are the people who they earn the least, They work the longest hours. They are absolutely super exploited and abused. And we can't simply stand around and say, well, it's not Saga's problem.
Yeah.
No. If you are a creative practitioner and you see somebody is suffering, you absolutely have to stand up, which is why Saga is extremely vocal. We have put out videos and we have made mention of the suffering throughout the value chain. So even though our mandate is Saga members, it doesn't stop us from calling out exploitation and abuse across the board.
Yeah.
Let's describe what is suffering in your industry. And let me say a disclaimer very quickly that I've had all sorts of versions of it on one of those chairs. But let me hear what you deal with almost on a daily basis. You can touch on some of them, and Jack will take a piece of that as well.
So you see, the suffering that you've heard has been from different individuals sitting on the side of the table, right? The difference here is we hear it from multiple varying individuals.
Yeah.
Some are members, some are not even members. The suffering it's a lot in the sense of the range. The range is so vast, to pinpoint something and say, for example, someone is being exploited by not being paid what they should be being paid.
Okay.
And then someone will say, okay, yeah, but who's to say how much they should be getting paid? Well, then there are metrics when we can look into it, and then one will say suffering like the food that we're eating on set, but one will say, yeah, but that other person seemed to have enjoyed the food on set. Then maybe it's now a preference thing, but then we need to then consider the setting that we are at,
They would say prima donna.
Yeah, that's what one will say.
treatment.
But it's like, I can't eat things that are going to increase my acid and give me heartburn when I'm about to be on set and performing, So then we need to look into these various things. So I think for person to person, it will vary. But the suffering is, in essence, not being met where you should be met.
Okay.
And we can look into that from, are there toilets that are clean enough for me to use?
Exactly.
Is there drinking water? Is there shade for me to sit under when I'm not in the scene? Like, it's vast.
Yeah.
Do I even have a change room, for example? So there are many different things, and I can make these seemingly like small examples, but in the greater scheme of things are big things.
Absolutely. It's
to be on a
it's working
set-
conditions.
To be on a set at 5 a.m. and you don't know where to change or where to sit, it's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Those who have cars can easily just go back and sit in their car and wait.
And one can even argue that is probably not the right thing to do.
No,
things.
no,
Not
You
really.
shouldn't
Not at
come to
all.
work and then wait in your car.
exactly.
Give me another take on some of the stuff he's spoken about.
I've been on sets where crew would be running live electrical cables through puddles of water. I've seen people standing up on the top of a gantry, and they're supposed to be leaning over and pretending to be, shooting handguns down at the action below. They weren't wearing any safety harnesses. We were left in a place where there's open food. It wasn't covered by a net.
Or
There's,
anything.
there's fruit, there's sweets, there's other food in this basket. It's not covered. Next to a clogged, overflowing toilet that doesn't have a door on it, and it's being used as a storage room for broken furniture. Let's talk about rights. Let's talk about the late Henry Cele. Shaka Zulu, 1985.
Yes.
That man was known around the world. It was the most impressive, most majestic performance to come out of South Africa at that time. And the world was absolutely captivated. That series, since 1985, has been licensed and sold around the world, different broadcasters, different territories, DVDs, streaming. That made over 5 billion rand in revenue.
Whoa.
When Henry Cele passed away in King Edward Hospital at like 54 years old, destitute, why did he not earn 1 single cent from that? Why did Shalene Surti Richards not have the money after a 40-year career? Why did she not have the money to take herself to hospital so that she could be alive and talking today. And that's just rights. Just to imagine not having health and safety protocols on set. It is such a basic requirement in any other industry. And we're not even talking now about having collective bargaining rights. Hungani, what are we going to do about artificial intelligence stealing our... We haven't even covered any of that.
Jeez.
We don't need to, because the needs of the industry are so primitively basic that we are embarrassed to sit here in front of you describing the conditions that people face. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to say, actors have it soft.
Why do you say that?
Because we can negotiate with the producer.
Okay. And they would then make a plan.
Yeah, they'll make a plan.
Yeah.
Often I'll speak to my agent.
Okay.
Your agent will say, Hungani is not in a comfortable place right now. Or they'll say, you know what, Hungani is coming in late. There was a problem at home. If you are a background actor who has to pay for your own transport, you have to stand last in line to eat food. You're not given any shelter. You're not ever paid overtime. You have to bring your own clothing to set. If you have that problem and you say, I'm sorry, but Temba can't come, that's it. He's done. He's not going to come back. He would have got paid 300 Rand for the day, and the agent would have taken up to 50% of that as commission. That's not even counting what it cost him to transport himself. How is it possible that we have not regulated an industry that does that to vulnerable people?
Help me understand the roots of this problem and where did we get it so wrong? Because South Africa, with all its problems, pothole being one of them, has managed to kind of get a lot of things right. Particularly when it comes to our laws and our constitution, protection of particularly of workers, because we have a very strong, unionized society. As a result, and also we're talking about a unionized society that has fought for the rights of workers for many, many years.
Oh, absolutely.
And that played a role in solving the bigger problem of apartheid. Our current president is a former union leader. That tells you where we come from. But how did we get this one wrong and so majestically wrong?
Well, I have a theory about this. You must know, unionism and collective bargaining rights started even before the end of apartheid.
Of course.
COSATU was an absolute powerhouse when it was established, also in the mid-80s. And it was COSATU that brought the apartheid economy to a standstill by mobilizing workers, mobilizing the mine workers. And since then, moving into the mid-90s, coming through CODESA, coming through, the drafting of our constitution, the Bill of Rights, you'll find it was from 94, 95 onwards that we revised all our labor laws.
Yeah.
Massive revisions. We repealed a lot of them. We strengthened those ones. We gave workers rights for the first time so that it leveled the playing field and it strengthened their case whenever they sat at the bargaining table opposite from the big mine owners and the employers and all of that. Now, in those years, you had agriculture, mining, freight, and all those big industries that used to provide people jobs.
Yes.
So with all these jobs, they were making massive contributions to the GDP. But if you look at the creative sector, they were not providing jobs at that scale. They were not making a dent to the GDP at that scale. What they didn't account for is, even though we're giving labor rights to all the traditional worker industries, they didn't revise our industry because they didn't see the need. We were not producing enough money or commodities or providing enough jobs for anyone in government to care.
You were not mainstream.
We weren't mainstream. Now we are in the internet age.
Yeah.
We skipped from broadcast TV, we went to DVD, to internet, streaming, social media. Now the things that we make are worth millions as commodities.
Billions.
Billions.
Yes.
They are exportable. So we failed to provide a regulatory framework in the early 90s that could have kept track of technology in the evolution of our industry. Because we failed then, we are now looking back to see we have been fast asleep for 30 years.
Wow. I look at it and say, the very people who make those laws watch the content
Yes.
Oh yeah,
for entertainment,
every day.
and yet there's no consciousness.
Indeed.
Is it possible also that the very actors were busy enjoying the little that they were getting to come together and fight for what is obviously theirs?
Yeah, it's also a very misleading path to take, because it's, we used to hear it all the time. Back in the day of President Zuma, he would call for the industry to come together, and he says, "I want you to speak with one voice."
I attended one of those meetings.
Right.
That's why I'm aware of it.
Very-
One was in Sandton Convention Center.
It's quite
Yes,
right.
I was in the room when he
And-
said, "You guys are too divided. That's why nobody will ever listen to you."
Right. And we heard that again with former Minister Natim Tetwa. You need to speak with one voice. And we're hearing it from Minister Gayton McKenzie. You need to speak with one voice. And we are saying to them, we beg of you, the sheep and the wolves cannot speak with one voice. The people who have the power cannot speak for the people with no power.
Yeah.
The people who have taken all the food to eat on their plate cannot speak the same language as the people who've just lost everything that they own. We are asking for rights that we don't have. The people who refuse to transform this industry are the ones who are sitting with all the rights. Do you think, in a grown-up world, I ask you as a rational human being, do you think they want to give up that power? Do you think they want to sit across the negotiating table? Do you think they want us to speak with one voice?
I want Hungani to deliberately break down your analogy. Because I want it to be clear enough who are the wolves and who are the sheep in this analogy.
Call it out, my friend. Call it
I
out.
mean, there's a number of them, And
You don't have to mention names.
No.
But you can
fair
at least
enough.
separate who's who.
I think we all can assume that we understand the way in which an actor would acquire work, right?
But we don't.
So I will play it out.
Yeah.
So there will be let's call it a streaming platform that will want to have an original piece of content, 13-part series, comedy, and they then have a production company that they partner up with in order to have this production to happen. This production company will then reach out to a casting director in order to find the actors to fulfill these different characters. The casting director will probably reach out to a list of agents that they have in their database. If they have maybe some side people, they'll also put it out there to WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups, all of these different things.
Got you.
Actors will go and audition. Actors will get a callback. Actors will be shortlisted. Negotiations will happen. You'll sign a contract. Then now you have the job. Prior to signing this contract, there'll come a time where you negotiate. And the negotiations will happen probably with yourself or probably with your agent if you have one, and the said called production company. It is during that time that you are then able to see where the power lies.
Okay.
Because even the contract that I'm reading, they, like mentioned already, there is no standard contract. So this contract is essentially the contract that you have given me to now look at. And most of the time, the offers that were given are a take it or leave it.
Absolutely.
Because there's someone who will definitely take it.
Yeah.
Or do it for less, for half the price.
Exactly.
Forget that. It's just the contract terms, there'll be someone who will take it. Having clauses, not to go too far into it, but having clauses like you are not allowed to be part of a guild or any union.
Never.
Make that make sense
Never.
In contract.
in a contract.
That's a Trump move.
It goes against
Yep.
our constitution.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in that moment, when you're reading this and it's a clause that they don't want to alter, you then realize it's a power play.
Yeah.
You want me to feel that this is a power play because you're basically saying you have no power, you have no rights.
Yeah.
So it's very evident where the power lies. The power lies in where I am getting my bread to eat for tonight so I can sleep.
Mm.
So whether it's from the broadcaster, whether it's from the producer, whether
Producers.
it's from the streamers, it is where I am getting my job. Obviously, we can then like debunk it and, you know,
Not everyone has the same amount of power, but
Exactly.
there is a
there's
division.
a hierarchy.
Yes.
Yes.
Jeez, man. Don't Saga represent producers? Or don't you have producers as part of?
No.
Or don't you have a back door where producers can walk in and be a part of this?
Look, you do have some producers or some actors who are producers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like myself.
There you
Of
go.
course.
Like a Kagiso scenario.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why even in Kagiso's case, he was also a Saga member.
Mm-hmm.
And Saga would only be able to represent you in your capacity as an actor.
Yeah.
Got you.
Because there are producer organizations in this country as well.
Who probably have their own problems.
They do. They do. Problems with broadcasters, problems with the
Yeah.
incentive rebate from the DTIC, problems with grants, problems with independent financing.
How we got to the point of the wolves and the sheep was really talking about collective bargaining.
Absolutely.
And you're saying, if I now understand you, we cannot be collective with some that are controlling how the game is played.
Well, yeah. And it starts off with, if the Department of Employment and Labor, and let's be very clear, we're talking about the Department of Employment and Labor, not Arts and Culture. Correct.
Yes.
The Department of Employment and Labor can recognize our right as workers. We will then have the right to engage in collective bargaining, which will allow us to set the standard rates, standard contracts. Every 4 years, we can sit together again and say, hey, guys, this artificial intelligence thing is a huge disruptor. What are we going to do?
Overcome it?
And then we have another negotiation. If there's a deadlock, guys, industrial action. We're going to start a picket tomorrow if we don't concede, if we don't compromise on our. That is exactly what happened in the States 2 years ago. There was a collective bargaining process. There's a negotiation. There's a deadlock. There's industrial action. Go back to the bargaining table. Find a way through. New deal. Meet again in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
or if there's an emergency, because technology moves so fast.
If it's
you may need to move to meet more quicker than that now.
And that's exactly what collective bargaining allows you to do. It's a very flexible model, but it is inclusive, transparent, and democratic.
Yeah,
we already have collective bargaining.
And very strong.
Yes.
A culture of collective bargaining, and the rules are in place.
Yeah.
And so what's wrong with us then, Hungani?
We don't speak in one voice.
Yes, you don't speak in one voice. Because there is a case, a competition commission exception.
Yes.
Which addresses this matter. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And give us a bit of background in that regard.
You're going to tell me if it sounds too technical, right?
Yeah, I think you'll do great though.
I will tell you too. Trust
Right,
me.
good. Yeah. So we need standard rates because then that it helps to level the playing field for the industry. We need standard contracts that helps level the playing field. But we don't have worker rights and collective bargaining rights. So we can't secure those standards in anything in law. If we're in collective bargaining, whatever comes out of collective bargaining, it goes to the minister, he puts it in a gazette, it's law. You cannot break that law.
Yeah.
So for us, if I have to sit now, I want to establish a standard rate, a standard contract with the producer. As Saga, I go meet the producer and we say, hey, listen, just make it easy for the industry. Let's just come up with these standards. Should we do that, we are in violation of competition law. It is called price fixing. It is called collusion.
Oh, no.
It is called cartel behavior.
It's corruption.
Right.
Simple term that everybody understands.
And if we had the same discussion at a negotiating table in the process of collective bargaining, then it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So Saga had to go and ask the Competition Commission, say, please, you have killed us because we don't have worker rights and we can't collectively bargain. You have killed us because if we have to attempt a negotiation, we are violating competition laws.
100%.
Meet us halfway.
Yeah.
And the Competition Commission looked at us, felt very sorry for us and said, 2 years later, we are giving you an exemption. Go and collectively bargain
So you have it as we speak.
as we speak.
However, it's being appealed.
There is an appeal that's being lodged by commercial producers. And I suppose you could say that was entirely predictable because there are parts of our industry that are resisting transformation and resisting regulation at all costs. So we are very happy for this appeal to be heard by the Competition Commission. We know that the Commission made its decision after extensive deliberations. 2 years it took them. And we presented a case, and we believe that the Competition Commission is going to back itself. And SAGA and the PMA, the Personal Managers Association, which is a body representing agents,
Okay.
we applied jointly. So we feel quite confident that we will reach a point where the Competition Commission, the Department of Employment and Labour are all going to take a very progressive view of our industry. And they will say, guys, it's 2025, apartheid is dead, please transform.
You say the wheels of change are clearly moving very slow.
Yes.
2 years is a long time.
It is.
Does anyone recognize, and maybe I should phrase it differently, is this an emergency? And if it is, are the right people who are in the game recognize how urgent this matter is?
May I take this one?
Please do.
Only because this morning I was on a news channel talking about the passing of Bra Don Mlangeni Nawa.
Who sat on that very chair? Yeah.
It was a privilege to spend 10 years of my life working with him and learning from him.
Sitingo.
Yes.
Yeah.
But hang on, wasn't it a few months before that Michelle Botis also passed? Yeah. But hang on, wasn't it a few months before that Darlington Michaels passed? And wasn't it a few years before that when you had Mutodi Inshe and Menzin Gubani and Shona Ferguson and Jamie Bartlett?
The list is long.
The list is long.
It's very, very long. I'm thinking of others, but the list is very, very
absolutely
long.
right.
Yes.
So
Connie Chume as well. It's on that list.
Mam Connie.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the longer I live and the longer I am an activist, the more of my elders I see passing, and it kills me because I'm looking at those same ministers and those government leaders attending those memorials, and they have nothing but empty platitudes. And they are there for the photo op.
Yeah.
Ask them what they are doing. Ask them if they understand the plight of the freelancer and why we haven't been able to unionize. Let them come with that nonsense about, oh, you haven't been speaking in one. Let them try that. Because the longer I live, the more and more I can see that we are selling out the next generation. I have to put this right for Hungani. I will not fail him. I've given him my promise already. And he has to make the same promise to the next generation.
Yeah.
How long are we going to wait?
Yeah.
Whew. So the players yourselves are conscious of the challenge, but the people you're dealing with who are meant to be implementers of this,
Yes.
is it possible that they don't understand your industry?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We sit with government people all the time.
And you can tell they don't grasp what you guys are talking about.
They don't get it.
There's that aspect of it, like not understanding, but it's also like, do you care?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because I mean, I've only been an EXCO member for about three years now, and in the times that I've been in these big rooms that I never thought I'd be in, like going to Gandhi Square at the EFF headquarters and all of these different rooms, there's genuinely
That room is very big.
no, yeah, but there's genuinely a lack of desire, a lack of care, because it cannot be said that the information wasn't given to them or the opportunity to have conversation in order to learn and then to make the changes that need to happen was not given to them. At every turn, if ever there's been a call out, we are literally on stand. We drop everything and make time to go sit with Minister Smangmang or to go to that room
And they
speak.
change. They have an expiry date.
And when you're
Absolutely.
there,
Yeah.
when you're there, you just realize that, I'm here to fulfill the fact that they can say, oh, no, we met with them.
Yes.
We
Tick
spoke to them.
box.
Because there's no follow through,
Mm.
even when unprovoked.
Oh, they would call and say, come, let's hang out.
Yeah, no, I just mean even unprovoked, they'll say things that ends up being stuff that the news runs with. It's on social media and
Yeah.
everyone's chanting, things are going to change.
Sound bites.
I mean, we have our lovely Minister Gayton McKenzie who made a promise about changing this industry this year.
On the 18th of January, in fact.
Yeah. He said he'll also introduce VAR. So
Okay, good.
we are all waiting.
So, so for me, it's just like it can't be an excuse any longer that they just don't know.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
They don't understand. When we don't understand something, we either search it or we find someone who can educate us on it. And when you've then been given those two opportunities, then what?
And it's okay if you want to go to the Cannes Film Festival to learn it.
100%.
Go. It's okay. Spend the money. I know that's what you want to do. Take your team of your hangers-on and your entourage. It's okay. Go to New York. Go to LA. Go and spend time at the Oscars.
Finding mission.
Yeah.
That's right. Go and learn, but then come back with something. And you will discover after all of that this is what Saga has been telling you for the last 15 years.
The Competition Commission exception speaks of rate. Does it attend to any other issue?
Standard contracts as well.
Okay.
So that we can identify Jack has been in the industry for 25 years. He's done so many titles. What should he be earning as a minimum rate? So we can then tier performers based on their experience, on their exposure, on their additional skills, on the number of titles they've had, on the number of years they've spent in the industry, maybe even what they've been giving back to the industry as well.
Can that be debated as well? The way you presented it, can a young Hungani comes into the industry and say, I'm popular and way more popular than you.
Yeah.
And I've only been around for 5 years. And as a result, I should be measured very differently. Can that be a debate on the table?
I'll answer it in this way. Are you a dad, by the way?
No.
Okay. I'm a dad. I've got two grown-up kids. And the question is, how do you know when you have become a good parent? You know when your own children become better than you.
Okay.
So I want this man to be earning more than me. That's how I know I've done my job.
Got you.
So the process that we have put together is an inclusive process that must invite his input. He must bring this idea and say, but Jack, I think your time is done. We don't shoot movies like that anymore.
Or I'm more bankable than you are.
Yes, that's right.
I attract a bigger audience than
Absolutely.
you do.
And I must argue with him and I must say, Hungani, you are still learning so many things, my son. Let me show you where you are wrong. And then from that democratic participation is where we will find ourselves somewhere in the middle and we will agree to where his rates and my rates and everybody's rates should be.
And that conversation happening?
It is still to happen because we, as Saga, remember, we are a non-profit organization. We have 9 EXCO members. You are looking at 2 of them.
Yes.
We are volunteers in this.
Yeah.
We don't earn a cent. We are here to sacrifice. We are here to give, to volunteer because we have this vision of the industry. So we have to now try and leverage interest in the industry, including those people that don't want us to succeed. We have to bring the broadcasters in the room. And they especially don't want us to succeed.
Of course.
Right.
Understandably.
Right.
Because they're wolves.
They are the wolves.
Yes.
Totally that. So through all of that, we have to try and give people a vision of why this process is important for the future and for the sustainability of our industry.
It's a challenging industry and because I realize that you use the word freelance, but it's much broader. The word freelance, much, much, much broader than your industry.
Oh, yeah.
And the question that immediately comes to mind, because I've been freelance for SABC for the past 25 years, it's a question that comes to me is like, I can't be a member of Saga because I'm not an actor. However, I'm on radio.
Yeah.
We don't have a collective bargaining anything
Yeah.
as radio presenters.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own challenges. Every year you're without a job and so forth and so forth. So it also then brings in other freelancers to the picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And maybe what you guys are doing will help chart the path for other types of freelance. I imagine freelance designers and freelance this and freelance that. In the advertising industry, it's now called the gig economy.
Correct.
It's an entire thing, let alone crew
Yeah.
on TV sets and movie sets. We're not talking about other people completely unrelated to your industry, but they're also freelancers.
And it is a global thing as well. I mean, just the other day, you put together a group of content creators.
Yeah. No, it's across the board. It's
Yeah.
across the board. It's not a just us thing as much as it may seem that way. We are just a body that represents the actors.
Yeah.
Here's a question that I can't help but think about. You represent famous people. Famous people are generally used to help with branding. Big products will say, we want you to hold a bottle of what, it'll help us. But why is it that the same actors cannot get this thing across to the other side? Because we're talking about people who can call somebody and say, can we sit down and talk?
You know, I would dare even say sometimes we think that people have a certain level of power by their popularity in society.
Let's use the word influence.
Influence. There we
Yes.
go. And I genuinely, it's a facade.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to meet anyone of famous who can make a phone call and things stop and shake.
Yeah.
Whoa.
You can put out a open letter through your Instagram as different little posts, or you can go to a platform and speak, all of these different things. It is spoken of during that hour.
Yeah.
And it trends.
Yeah.
And then we forget about it and we move on. And then we say, oh, Konje, Oprah David once said.
Oh boy.
So for me, it's like the whole notion of us not speaking in one voice carries regardless of who makes that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if, let's just say, I'm that famous person and I call SABC, let's just say, and I say, guys, your stuff is outdated. We need to work on it. You can see that it's bothering the industry and it's hurting our industry, X, Y, and Z. That person will say, okay, no, I'll expedite this thing and see who I can speak to.
Oh, they use that word.
You
with
know,
YouTube.
expedite.
It's my favorite South African
Hurry
word.
up and wait.
Expedite.
Hurry up and wait.
They say expeditious.
Yes.
You see.
Sounds very important.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that. Like, people can claim to have a certain level of influence, but until it's actually realized, I don't believe in it.
And a level of understanding as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because, there are a number of people, serious acting heavyweights with brilliant international credits to their name.
Mhm.
Now they're living in the US mostly, or they're flying in between very important people. And they'll see something explode on social media and they'll say, oh, now I have to get involved.
Yeah.
It's time for me to come in. And they'll say, Jack, I know I put it off. I need to be a member and I want to join the activism. Absolutely. Yes. What do you need? Because, a lot of this, you need background information, you need context, you need to see what Saga has been doing over the last few months or years so that you don't come in cold.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, yes, please send me some documents to look at, some the drafts,
Yeah.
maybe some documents you sent to Parliament or Employment and Labour or DSAC. We'll give them a nibble, just 2 or 3 small documents, just keeping it simple, just to get you interested.
And so you don't overwhelm as well.
They invariably,
Mm.
they turn and run in fear because suddenly we are using things like sectoral determination, exemption, competition commission, copyright, and, royalty. Now we are actually speaking the language of the industry.
Yeah.
But this person who has been applying themselves as a professional, as a creative for so many years, didn't realize that there are certain fundamental things you need to understand from a legal point of view, from a rights point of view. and all those things then make people lose their confidence suddenly.
However, I can help that person and say some things are just not made for certain people.
Fair enough.
Their role is to do what they do.
Yes.
And do it really well. And fortunately, what they do brings a bit of cloud. There should be somebody else in the room, which is why the industry has agents and lawyers and so forth.
True.
There should be somebody else in the room whose role is to do nothing else but untangle the entanglements.
Yeah.
To simplify the complication.
Sure.
And make sure that everybody else understands it.
Correct.
And I feel maybe the approach also could be a legal help of sorts. But then again, that requires money and so forth.
Yeah, exactly.
And so forth. So that's why I'm slowly starting to understand your problem. And I say it's easy for a big time actor to say, I'm good, man.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid what I want.
Yeah.
I'm getting the endorsements that I want. Why do I want to play with those guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you suffered that problem?
Yeah, when you make it a personal matter, then you'll always suffer this problem. And some people will make it a personal matter because their affairs are in order. But also their affairs could be better in order. So when you make it a very personal thing, you miss the all of us part of it. Jack mentioned it earlier on, where he's made a promise to me, essentially my generation of actors. There will be a generation that comes after and after and after. There's a generation that's been before and before and before. And I think it's understanding that this is a us thing and not a me thing. Because when you make it a me thing, then it's okay for you to look at your stuff like, okay, no,
I'm good.
we're fine. As much as, things could be better, but I'm right. And it's not that.
Yeah.
The mere fact that you can be on a set as, let's just say, number one on the call sheet. You are the steering. But you can see that there's people who are not eating from the same place as you're eating.
Yeah.
Or there's people who must sit in the scorching hot sun without water to drink, and they are asking for water.
And you say nothing.
And you're saying, I'm
sorted.
right. Meaning right.
Yeah.
Because why? We're shooting in someone's house and they've made that little room on the side your place. So
Does your
you're fine.
industry suffer that problem?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. More often than you'll think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, no.
No,
More often than
it's
you'll
almost
think.
a rule, actually, if you think of how background actors are treated. Which is why, when Saga stands up in his activism, we don't limit ourselves. Where there's injustice and inhumanity, we have to call it out.
It bothers me that within your own potential members, there could be divisions.
Yeah.
And that will slow down the progress.
That's the
Naturally,
reality.
Yes.
That is the reality.
Wow.
Because even within our members, for example, there'll be someone who's there solely for the benefit of the legal advice and contract assistance that we provide as a benefit. So now you're there purely for the sake of, I just want to make sure my contract is
in
good for
order.
me.
And I walk
Yeah.
away.
And then I'm good with the rest. I don't need royalties. I don't need better conditions. I just want to make sure that my contract is as best as it possibly can be.
Here's a segue into the Kagiso matter. Royalties. Because it's something that every chance he's had, every conversation I've had with him, we would speak about royalties and a fight that he's been committed to try to fight. How much has Saga achieved when it comes to the royalty issue?
Royalties are contained in law, in statute, right? Now that law hasn't been signed yet, which means that no matter what you and I do, no matter what royalties you and I agree to, if the law doesn't support us, there is no broadcaster that will demand that the provision is there.
True.
So full credit to Kagiso when he says, I decided I'm going to have royalties in my contract. That's a man who actually has been thinking about the plight of actors.
Yeah.
And he's making provision for them. The difficulty in his position is that he can't sustain it because until the law gives him that support, he's always going to be out on a limb. There are other technical issues as well. Who collects the money for each actor? Who calculates the money?
Yeah.
Is there a commission that has to be deducted from there? And then how do you pay it to the actor? all that is contained in the Copyright Amendment Bill.
Which has been somewhere waiting to be signed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long has it been now?
7 years.
So it's been through two presidents.
And it's been through Parliament twice.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are the challenges? What do you guys know?
Well, it's the lack of political will, because in the bills are contained rights for people with disabilities, people who have visual impairments. You've got the rights of learners, researchers, the rights of authors and libraries, and actors as well. So all this is contained there. And there are people, particularly those entities up in the global north, the streaming platforms, the broadcasters, the studios, the publishing houses, and they are saying, what is the South Africa? What is the South
What
Africa?
are they doing?
They want royalties. What? And so you have enormous interference from international giant corporate entities.
But are saying this is not going to happen.
They're saying, no, it can't happen. And then you have a president who is sensitive to maintaining a balance of diplomatic relations by saying, I will give you this and I will keep that, and then let's put this in the negotiation and take that. And he has sacrificed the royalty rights that should have come to actors. He sacrificed the Copyright Amendment Bill, the Performance Protection Amendment Bill, by delaying and delaying and delaying since the bills went into Parliament in 2017. In November of 2018, the National Assembly had signed it. By March of 2020, the National Council of Provinces had signed it. It went to the president, and there it sat for 15 months. He did absolutely nothing until Blind SA
said, our people
are
in there.
Yes, that's right. So are you going to do your job as you are mandated by Parliament, or are you not? Suddenly the president woke up and said, oh, okay, no, I don't like this. I'm going to send it back to Parliament, but now it needs to go another route. Now it needs to go to the provinces as well, individually.
Yeah.
And so he extended the process by another 3 years.
Whoa.
But you know what? After that, it still passed. It still passed. In September of 2023, it passed again, the National Council of Provinces. On the 29th of February, 2024, it passed the National Assembly. And now it comes to the president again.
Are you saying it's at the Union Building?
It's now because the president says, they haven't resolved my issues. I am now going to take it to the Constitutional Court, which he could have done in 2020.
Help us understand what are copyright laws when it comes to actors. I'm a TV producer. I produce a movie. It's a big movie. It goes to play everywhere. It's in the movies, then it ends up being streaming, then it ends up being sold to SABC and ETV and so forth. So it's a movie that has been around for 10 years. And you know, what is the copyright right that the actor should have in a context of a movie like that? And how you're right in saying that a lot still needs to be solved, the collection and so forth and so forth. That I get. But then what is the simple right in that regard?
Actors, as they do around the world, have an exclusive, unwaivable right to earn royalties that is put in your contract. And in that contract, as you sign it, you now agree with the producer or the broadcaster that as this title travels around the world, there will be a tiny percentage that becomes due to me, which will be paid into this collecting society, which will then come to me.
Like musicians.
Like musicians. Musicians have had the royalty right in this country for nearly 60 years. And here's South Africa still trying to fight for its actors.
Wow.
But with the lack of regulation, the musicians also suffer.
Of course.
Exactly.
No, of course. I don't want to go there.
Yeah,
but
no,
yes.
I'm just, you know.
Fair point.
It's oh no. So for Kagiso in this context, he's saying, I will work it into this movie. you will end something.
Yeah.
You're saying he'll struggle to solve the back office
Correct.
because it has its own complications. Understandably, because
Yeah.
the system is not in place yet.
Correct.
Yes, because the law hasn't given it go ahead.
So full marks.
However, full marks for trying.
Yeah. Yeah. And we give that credit to him
Yeah.
because I know of maybe 5 or so producers who are prepared to do that and who have done that.
Mm.
And some of them have also made royalty rights for the writers on the show, which is incredible. So it reminds you that there are people who understand what this creative sector is meant to be.
Yeah.
And Kagiso is exactly the kind of guy who would say, yes, we must see for each other. He's waiting for the law to catch up to him. Right?
True.
So the thing that's holding him back is, can we get these bills passed? And he won't be able to get this right when it comes to working with a broadcaster. The moment he gets a commission from a broadcaster, the broadcaster owns all the rights.
So he can't solve that.
He can't solve it. His hands are tied.
He's merely a producer who's you're baking the cake, but it belongs to the master.
Yes.
Oh, let's talk about Kagiso. Made a lot of statements related to Saga. And that's when I got a call from your organization to say, can we get a right to respond to some of these? You can start anywhere, based purely on your memory of what he said.
Thank you.
Yes. You can start anywhere you want. Go right any one
Well,
of you.
If I may, Hungani, I
Yeah,
think
please.
it's fair to start with the point at which Kagiso said, and I think I remember his words when he said it. He says, I'm going to state it boldly. I started Saga, is what he said.
With Jack.
I started Saga with Jack and an agent. So if we understand the English language in the way that we think we do, when somebody says, I started Saga with Jack, the interpretation of that is it was Kagiso and it was Jack and it was this agent and we created Saga. Now, Saga was established in 2009 and we registered our guild in 2009, and you had the people who had to sign as the founding members, as the directors of this entity that is now registering with the CIPC. That's how you register an organization.
Yes.
There's my constitution. These are the directors. These are their addresses, ID number, and all of that.
Yeah.
That list was Colin Deval Smith, Hans Stradom, Murray Todd, Grant Swanby, Zane Mears, Jack Devnarayan. There was no Kagiso Modupe there.
Okay.
Kagiso Modupe became a member of Saga on the 1st of January 2017, and he terminated his membership on the 30th of April 2018. So while Saga has been around for 15 years, Kagiso Modupe was a member for 15 months. We have to look at the facts. You cannot simply state, let me say boldly, I started Saga, when you were nowhere near.
Yeah.
That is just unfair and it's untrue.
Is there, when you analyze his statement, what do you think he misunderstands? Or you feel it was just a mere misrepresentation of the truth?
It was a misrepresentation. I think what he was aiming for, and he's welcome to correct me at any point, is he was trying to establish his connection with Saga, his affiliation as a person who cares about what Saga does. And in doing that, perhaps he went too far. But it's important, though, in order to honor the people who had stood up right at the beginning in 2009. Remember, we had just registered the entity. We only took our first member in 2010.
Okay.
But then you've got from 2010 up until 2017 when Kagiso then becomes a member. And of course, he would have known that Saga's around and all. He would have been viewing, he would have been, checking to see, is this something I want to belong to? And at a certain point, he says, yes, I'm going to join. So I don't doubt that in that time, those 7 years, he was looking at Saga and he was saying, I like what they're doing.
He also made a statement related to how Saga keeps this this crazy story of non-payment of actors alive in the papers. And I use the papers as a general statement of the media. Respond to that statement, because he said he doesn't understand why every time a story of that nature comes up, Saga is there somewhere. Why
Yeah.
is that?
I'll jump in
Go ahead,
and
yeah.
you can continue, Jack.
Yeah.
I think with the way we operate, if a member calls in or a member sends a message or an email with whatever grievance that they have,
I have not been paid.
I have not been paid.
Mm-hmm.
Saga will have its legal team do what they do, reach out, and whether it's a letter of demand and all the different processes that follow, thereafter there'll come a point where maybe there hasn't been a response. So now we don't know how best to navigate this because we're not getting a line of communication, for example. Another way is to be an activist, which is exactly who and what we are,
Yeah.
advocating for professional actors. We then speak on the matter. And speaking on the matter is to first bring awareness to the matter, but also possibly so that we can get it resolved. Because the main issue here is a Saga member reached out and said, hey guys, I'm signed under this contract. They were supposed to pay on this date. It's now this date. They're not responding to me, or this is the communication I've received. Please, can you help? So speaking on it is not for any other reason but to resolve the issue.
Yeah.
Have you said across the table from Kagiso, if we use his example as the example of someone that walked in and said, Kagiso hasn't paid me, or Bakwena Productions haven't paid me, please help me out. Has Saga reached out to him in that regard?
There's a very simple answer to that question being, has Saga reached out? Yes. But prior to us unpacking that, I would throw a question back and say, according to you in this situation, looking from the outside, what would the purpose of Saga reaching out to a Kagiso be?
To help an actor who got a job and never got paid. And because part of what you do is to represent professional actors' rights, is to say, oh, we didn't know. Let's call and find out. Or let's set up a meeting because you are on the side of the actor that's not paid. And you're calling the person who's meant to do the paying. Shouldn't that be your role?
100%. So an email was sent by our legal team.
Yeah.
I forget the date, but it was
10th
in
of October.
There we go.
Whoa, Jack.
And
That's a skill.
I came ready for you. I brought receipts.
Okay.
and to date, I could be wrong, but to date, there still hasn't been a response.
There's no response to date. I confirmed that with our EXCO member, Daniel Janks. And I said, buddy, have you looked at this podcast? What Kagiso has said? Have you received a response to your request to meet sent on the 10th of October last year? And he says, we still haven't received anything.
Something that he also said. Go ahead. You want to say
So
something?
I received a personal call
Okay.
from Kagiso, chatting about this and trying to understand Saga's perspective, me trying to understand his perspective. But this was a personal call.
Okay.
This wasn't a Saga call. In the call, we discussed the issue at hand. He made mention that there's people who have been paid like this. There's people who have been treated like this. Many of the things that they mentioned when they were here. And he made mention of why is it that when some people have been paid or when people have been paid, there then isn't communication from Saga that people have been paid. And my rebuttal to him was, if a father is present, we should not be ululating because the father is present. That's a given.
Story of the fish and water.
Right.
So
Yeah.
having done what it was that was requested, is that being done? It should have been done according to the correct dates as stipulated in the contract, if we're being clear. So after the conversation that we had, I then said to him, I'll bring it up in our EXCO meeting to see if there's an avenue and a way for us to then have conversation. And in the meeting, I was then made aware of this message, this email that was sent to their production. So it then made it difficult for me because I genuinely have a personal relationship with him. We work together on Scandal. Now it's like you're asking me to curate a conversation when we've actually initiated that conversation want or ask,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been met. So then it becomes difficult to watch him say the things that he says and be like, but we've sent out a request to communicate and find out information. So to make it seem as though we're just lurking by the curtains on the side, waiting for something, and then we're now going to shout is
The example is the traffic officers who
Yeah.
wait for you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And we are not that.
Yeah.
Let me also understand then that are there still people who haven't been paid,
Oh.
according to your knowledge, when it comes to the issue of that TV show with the boxer lady?
Let me start.
No way. You have a list?
Receipts. Or rather,
Potlahle casting agency owed 24,550 rand, and then 4,000 rand for transport that has not been paid. Glam Fame Talent Management 80,550 rand has not been paid. Klope Casting Agency 36,350 rand not paid. The Kadison Huis Guest House 6,800 rand not paid. Professional background artist 21,450 rand not paid. Location and unit manager 28,000 rand not paid. Sipo Slatwayo driver 149,000 rand 200 not paid. Kaya Jali DOP 25,000 rand. So these are people who've come to us.
And I noticed some of them are not actors.
Correct.
They're just
like I was saying, they'll
crew.
reach out and say, hey, I was a part of this thing.
Sure.
So it's very difficult to say, Saga is engaged in a smear campaign. We can only deal with the facts. We can only deal with the truth. Now, Hungani is right. If I'm going to speak to Bakwena Productions, it can only be based on Saga's mandate, which would be our members.
True.
So if our member comes to us and says, guys, this is what happened, and it's important to note as well that at the time that the production was starting off, agents were doing the deals for their actors with the production. They sent through the contracts. The contracts had not been signed for 3 weeks, and yet all those actors were on set for 3 weeks in good faith. The contracts only came back from production about a week before they finished shooting.
Jeez.
So there was a lot being done in good faith
by actors,
by other actors and by the agents.
Yes.
But they were prepared to work because they know this is Kagiso. He's doing some good stuff here. We'll stand by him. And then when it reached a point when the people were not being paid, and then you had the Bakwena production saying, we are not going to engage any further with you. People started to get really anxious, especially the background actors, because at that point, the background actors were really worried that there's so much of money outstanding. And Bakwena Productions was saying, we are now going to conduct an internal audit because we suspect there's fraud.
Yes.
And they're saying, we've got fraud. Now, this is where things start to become really difficult. You must know, I spent nearly 10 years in the police before I became a full-time actor. I carry that history with me.
Of course.
If you are going to say to me that we are suspecting fraud, then I expect to see a case number.
Got you.
Give me a case number. Tell me that you've taken the evidence that you've collected in your internal audit. Remember, you didn't do an independent audit. It was internal. Like how the ANC likes to assess itself.
Self-correct and self-analysis.
That's right.
Yes.
So if you're going to do an internal audit and you decided that there's fraud, then I need you to take the next step because that shows that you are serious that this is fraud and you are serious about uncovering this. But if you are going to hide behind it and say, we found fraud, we're not going to pay anybody, then what? You've got pages and pages and pages of people, hundreds of thousands of rands that's outstanding to the people who are the most vulnerable. They earn the least from all of us. And you are saying to them, it's fraud.
Something that comes across quite strongly in your tone when you deal with Kagiso and Bakwena is that of understanding. I get a sense. You don't speak very harshly in your in your approach when you talk about it. Tell me why that is.
I've known Kagiso for a long time and I respect him. And I appreciate what he's done. And I see where his career is going. And I have the greatest respect for his ambition. And to make the transition from actor to producer, very few people get that right. And I believe that we still have enormous potential for a working relationship. And I think he even might have suggested it as well. But of course, producers and Saga are heading on the same path. And it would have been amazing. And in fact, we did ask when we were setting this up whether, the guys from Bakwena might also be here, because we don't need this to be a confrontation. We need this to be, I'm putting the facts on the table because Saga doesn't have a beef with you. We are saying we are approaching things in a certain way based on facts.
Yeah. Look, the communication came through from your side to say, can the guys be available? And I don't want to say that they said no. I want to say that it may have been a matter of diaries on their side.
Absolutely, I get it.
Because we needed to get this going.
Yeah, for sure.
And I didn't want to delay it any further. Because also, there's a silent accusation that I also get that I'm not giving the other side the right to react to this. And yet I felt, if the guys came here alone, surely you can do the same and represent the case just as strongly. And those who watch it will watch it and make their own opinion of the matter. And as you said, Jack, you came with receipts, and no one can dispute that at all. As we sit now, how do you feel about the Kagiso matter and Bakwena production? How should it be solved, in your opinion? Well, what should be the most natural next step?
We want him to have a successful commissioned production with the SABC, S2, Pimville, I think it is. We want to remind him that Saga is here to make things easier for him as the producer. We want to help by getting actors to understand their contract. What can you ask for? What can you negotiate? What can't you do? We want to also be careful that if the broadcaster is pushing actors to do things like social media or marketing or brand placement, we're going to remind the SABC and Kagiso, listen, that was never part of the original SABC agreement from 1997. You need to pull that back. And of course, remember, we still have our exemption negotiation to deal with. Of course, we want him in the room. So we are here. Hungani will tell you this because he's being a producer himself. We need, as actors, to work with producers.
And I imagine you want that relationship to be harmonious because you represent their employees in inverted
That's right.
commas.
We need each other.
That's right. We do.
Yeah.
This is the symbiosis that keeps the industry alive.
I struggle to understand when there's a misunderstanding or misalignment of two parties, so particularly people who when you speak to them individually, they sound and seem very reasonable. And now you wonder, what is the problem? Why can't we sit together in one room?
The whole time watching that episode, I kept asking myself, what is the goal here? Like, what is it that, outside of wanting to take accountability and all of the various things
Which
that
they
did.
Yeah.
There was a point where he mentioned, I don't want this to become a Saga interview. And then not even 2 minutes later, he then brings up Saga. And that continued, the narrative continued. I give or take, like, I just kept asking myself, okay, but what are we trying to get at? Because at some point you even asked, but why would they be, what's the agenda?
What does Saga
You know,
want
yes.
with you?
And I still am confused at what we could possibly want, and then the mentioning of trying to leverage off clout was for me just so bizarre, because I'm like, guys, 15 years running, in the past, give or take 4 years, there's been a huge transformation from how Saga communicates information to the point where, like Jack already mentioned, we are that point of contact now in the industry when it comes to actors. That is not because of anybody else's clout but Saga's clout. People know Jack, and to some degree, I'm like, my good sir. People know Jack more for Saga than they do his work, and he's got great work under his belt.
Of course, we know it well.
And for me,
He
it's
should
like,
come here for a different interview.
yeah, no, really, he should be back
Yes.
with no mention of Saga.
Absolutely.
There's even like these selfie videos that he does where people are like, the minute I see that video, I know you're about to say something that relates to me. So the narrative is there, the motion is there for us to piggyback off. No, we don't do that. Our mandate is to be here for our members. And we do that as best as possible. But also, because we are advocates for our industry, we have to be vocal so that people know that there is a place that understands exactly what they're going through. Because all EXCO members, except for our one founding member who's an agent, we're all actors.
Yeah.
We understand what it's like on the ground. When you see a contract and it says your image, your likeness in perpetuity,
everywhere in the universe.
Exactly. With the technology that exists
we go to
now or the
Mars?
technology that will exist in the future.
Yeah.
I understand what that means. So when I'm advocating for that to change, I know where that sits in me. I'm not just saying it because I'm a poster boy. So I feel for me like it was very strange. I even called my wife. I was like, do you see what he's saying? Like, I was
man.
so
You got me a viewer.
confused. I was so confused.
Yeah.
Because outside of the personal relationship from being on set together and then working together a few times thereafter, I was just like, this is not the representation of the person that I know personally. And maybe he's wearing the hat of producer, captain of Bakwena Productions, and fair enough. But I think, like Jack said, it's important to lay the facts, because a small glitch in information or in hyperbole can become something that it's not supposed to be.
That's true.
There was additional confusion as well when Rashaka mentioned there's a rumor that we have got this big contract with SABC.
Yes.
And I didn't understand why it was being framed as a rumor. Because you had SABC Group CEO, Nomsa Chabeli, who had already stated that they had commissioned Bakwena Productions.
Yeah.
She had already stated, and that was in a letter to Parliament. She had already stated, we are going to assign a supervising producer to make sure that there are no issues. And then you have Bakwena Productions sitting here, Rashaka, you had Kagiso, and they're saying, there's a rumor that we've got this production. Guys, it's okay. We know this is industry. We know we don't have any malicious intent by saying that this is the production.
Yes.
And in fact, one of the parts that they reacted to was when Saga said, we need to question the SABC for what due diligence do they do when they are engaging with a production company that is mired in accusations. And I know those words because I said those words. And those words were reported in the article.
Yeah.
We have a duty to question and interrogate the SABC. You are spending public money. That money is coming from the treasury. Every year, SABC is running hundreds of millions of rand in the red. And we as creatives are not asking them any questions. We have to question them. If this production still owes so many, like 500,000 rand, let's just say, to the most vulnerable people, cast, background actors, crew.
Mm.
Yes, you've paid most of them, fantastic, but this is still outstanding.
Yeah.
We need for SABC to be asking this production, is everything okay?
Mm.
Has that happened from Saga's side, where you've engaged with SABC, particularly in this regard?
We have asked for a meeting with the SABC. There has been no response.
And you say your intent is not malicious.
We
It's
want
not to take, as young people say, you don't want to take bread out of their mouth.
no. In any event, we accept
Mm.
that this show has been commissioned. We are asking, and it was very interesting what the group CEO said.
Mm.
She was explaining why they have now allocated a supervising producer. And it was revealing when she mentioned, we are doing this to make sure that our interests are protected.
Got you.
And I was thinking, but what about the interests of the background actors and the crew and the actors? You have used this opportunity to put in a supervising producer to protect the broadcaster's own interests. What about the rest of the people?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, think bigger than that.
Yeah. Wow. So the meeting hasn't happened.
No, and we don't expect it will happen, and that
Like many
it
of
doesn't
our
matter to
meetings.
us. We have a duty to make sure.
That sounded very sad. We'll come to it.
Yeah.
This is like many of our
No, I
meetings.
mean, we've reached out to all of the streamers,
Oh,
you
yes.
name it. And
Yes.
maybe at best you'll get a not now,
Yeah,
at best.
but usually a decline.
Yeah.
But the point is, as an organization, we like to collect those letters that says we declined, we declined, we declined, because this is how we're building our case. When we introduce transformation and regulation into the industry, I want those people to come and cry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when we say to them as Saga, and we're sitting across the table from them, and we hold up their decline notice, and we say to them, when we came to you and we asked you nicely,
On such and such date.
you wanted nothing to do with us. Now we are not asking you any longer.
Do you feel right now, as we speak, 2025, first, 3, 4, 5 months of the year, you have enough clout to get things going? Because one of my biggest worry about the position that you find yourself in is that the people who should be listening to you are not listening to you. Do you have enough clout, or maybe you're gaining enough traction?
We are mobilizing in different ways now, and we have got incredible support from the international community. Would you believe? We have support from the International Federation of
Tell
Actors.
us a little bit about that.
Saga is very proud to be affiliated globally. So in 2012, Saga became a member of the International Federation of Actors, where all the world's actors unions and guilds sit together. So we are literally alongside SAG-AFTRA,
In the US.
in the US.
ACTRA in Canada.
Yeah,
Equity UK.
Equity Australia.
The list goes on.
It's incredible. You talk about a culture of unionizing in the creative sector. You've got the Swedish Actors Union. It's over 130 years old, and we are still discovering it in South Africa. So come on, guys. So yes, we have a lot of support, and mobilizing is going to be the trick. It's, when do we try and find Hungani available between his shooting schedule so we can deploy him to do that?
Let's make a reference quickly to Vatiswa. You made an example using Vatiswa as really people, in my opinion, who suffered. And I know there's many who suffer, but she was very vocal about it and so forth. Something that she said to me in the long conversation that we had, that you easily get blacklisted, in inverted commas, in this industry, where you step on one toe without realizing that you're stepping on 10 more from that one toe that you stepped on. Is there cultures like that in the industry, or at least some of elements that speak to that?
They are. It's a very, very powerful system of manipulation and control, and it exists in various forms. And women are most vulnerable to that. So it is a real thing, because you've got people, especially like the commissioning editors, wield far more power than they should. And in many cases, they take the power away from the producers when it comes to casting.
What?
And they say, we don't want this person here because they're actually in another role, in another title that we have in a later time slot.
Oh, no.
So they will start making decisions and, in our view, overstepping the mandate that they have based on a whim, because they feel they like this person. They don't like this person. They want somebody else for that role. They want their friend to produce this show. And it's led to all kinds of complexities, nepotism, bungling, and damage to actors' credibility and range of work.
I think just to add on, I think the bigger issue here is being victimized for standing up and saying, "Hey guys, you're not doing right by us."
Yes.
Because it's hardly ever a me thing when you stand up like that.
Yeah.
That's why Saga exists, so that you don't have to stand up and be victimized. The body that is Saga, the organization that is Saga, is the one that speaks on your behalf.
Yeah.
Because it's very real. The reality of standing up and now busy diva.
Yes, of course.
Or Hungani, that one's hard to work with. Hey,
Hey.
he's gonna tell you he wants a green room with sofas. He's gonna tell you he wants still water in a bottle.
Smarties, I read only.
You know. But let there be an international actor.
Ooh.
What do we do?
Yeah.
Who wants red Smarties?
Oh, yes.
We're up and down.
Oh,
we
yeah.
make sure that it's right.
Ooh.
And then I go stand in the same scene with that person.
Mm.
But our treatment is very different.
Wow. Your industry is very tricky. I've sat in front of many of the people who are in your industry, and some of the most common challenges are exactly that, the imbalance of treatment.
Yeah.
They're very basic, and some are exposed to international projects.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll say, whoa, it's chalk and cheese,
Yeah.
two worlds. And you know, we're not saying we want a caravan,
Yes.
but
yes.
at least, you know,
Yeah.
meet me halfway. You know, I remember Umam Koni spoke of, I felt like I was an actor when I was working in those projects in America. Now I felt appreciated.
I'll give you a good scenario. There was a movie being shot a number of years ago, and our very dear friend and huge Saga supporter, the late Mutodi Nshe, he went up to audition for this role. And in the audition process, the producer said, this is an improvised knife fight scene.
Okay.
And they gave him a knife to use, which was a real knife. And he says, I want nothing to do with this production because someone's going to die.
Yeah.
He left that audition. He didn't get the role that he was reading
Of
for.
course.
Who got the role?
Do you want to tell us?
Odwa Shweni.
Ooh.
The man who took that role ended up in that fight scene and ended up going over the edge of a waterfall to his death.
Jeez.
And I ask you, when we say we are looking for on-set safety, standard practices, for standard treatment, to have fight choreographers, stunt doubles, when we want to have safety harnesses and all those things in place, and when people say, you guys, man, just get on with it. You guys must be tougher than that. You can't be divas, Yola. I look at that situation and I relate what happened. And that man who was in his mid-30s, who should never have died, now we are here and he is all but forgotten.
Jeez. Could there be a cost issue involved in you asking for a stunt double and production says, we only have so little, we cannot afford it?
Yeah. There is a cost implication, and we would say, go and rewrite the scene then.
Whoa. Of course, there's always a solution.
Yeah.
Basically saying, find a solution.
Yeah.
But don't endanger an actor.
The actor, and this is something that Hungani and I learned when we were engaging with Mr. Michael Crosby, who was the head of the Australian Actors Equity and former General Secretary of FIA. He says it shouldn't have to be the actors who subsidize the compromises that need to be made on the producer side.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to carry that burden for you.
Give me some examples of successes of the cases that Saga has had to deal with. What
Oh.
comes to mind?
Yeah, well, I mean, the side you go and I'll.
He seems to be beaming. It's like, I know what.
Now, I wanted to lead with this is a conversation that we have so often in our EXCO meetings because we want to talk, especially when it comes to the legal battles. Like we want to be able to shine a light on these victories, but there's certain limitations, of course, when it comes to what you can share, what you can't share, names, all of these things. And then you eventually like, you know what, guys, let's not speak about it.
But do the best you
So when
can.
you said it, I was like, I wonder what we're going to share.
Give the best you
What do
can.
you have in
Give
mind?
the best you can in terms
I mean-
of a generic scenario without using names necessarily.
So I won't go into a particular. Jack can do that. I think for me, a great success is what we've touched on already, which is the Competition Commission exemption. And I say this because it's the first time in history that we've been given the opportunity to sit across and collective bargain.
Yeah.
That is the biggest success in the 15 years of Saga's existence that we currently are sitting with.
Jeez.
And if you can't understand the magnitude of what this means for our industry, for actors, and the greater, like I said, the greater large of our industry, then there's something really amiss. Yeah. But in terms of like
The
individual
Often, and it goes again to the issues where Saga is not necessarily working in the interests of its own members, but in the interests of the industry as a whole. On Shaka Ilembe 2, there were background actor agents. These people are unregistered. Many of them operate only on WhatsApp groups and on social media. And they go out and they say,
Looking for black guys,
18 to 35.
tall black guys.
Yeah.
yes, Nguni looking.
Willing to be topless.
That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah,
Nguni
Nguni
looking. I wonder what is that?
That's you and me.
Yeah. Congratulations, you got the role.
Nguni looking.
So these people were brought up from Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, KZN, and they were told, you have to pay your own transport to come to Gauteng.
Oh.
We will put you in this open veld and we'll provide you with a tent. You have to pay your own food. You will have to pay us as agents for to sleep in this. You have to pay us a certain rent. And on the days that you do work as a background actor, you have to pay us up to 50% commission.
By the time you're done, you've made nothing.
Yeah.
You owe them.
You owe them. See, what you just said right there is the definition of servitude.
Whew.
When you get people to move from one province to another and you create that relationship of servitude, that is what you call human trafficking,
Of course.
which is what Saga then went and reported to the Hawks.
Oh.
That was my statement and the statement of the chair of SABAG, Daniel Nodia, because we went to see how these people are being kept. We took them food because they were starving.
Wow.
And eventually, we also took this matter and we opened a case at the Human Rights Commission.
Tell me you solved it in
Oh.
the end.
They're still looking at the case.
Oh, no.
Yeah, bureaucracy, we understand. But this is the extent that Saga is prepared to go to in reporting. There was another one in KZN recently, a little 3-year-old boy. He gets the role, taken onto set. The only regulation you do have, children under the age of 15 are allowed to work in entertainment, but the Department of Employment and Labor has to give a permit.
Okay.
And what we had in this case was this production company failed to comply with the conditions of the permit. So here's a dad. He knows a little bit about the industry. His 3-year-old son is absolutely traumatized.
Jeez.
And Saga, that child is not Saga's member.
No.
But if I hear a story like that, I will find out who is the chief inspector in KZN. And I will say to him, sir, meet so-and-so. This is the report. Please check if there was a permit. Please see if there was a
So
violation.
it becomes a police matter almost immediately.
There you have it.
Yeah.
The question is, if Saga is not doing it, who is going to?
Ooh. Yeah. You are needed.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah. Because in an unregulated industry, things like this start to go wrong. And the bar gets lower and lower and lower and lower.
Where's the bar now?
Where 3-year-olds are brutalized on
Yes,
sets.
and
where...
Goonie-looking men
Yeah.
are treated badly.
That's right. That's right.
Is
And
it? How low is the bar? Is it very, very low, or is it average, or there's enough effort to try to raise it?
What did Michael Crosby say?
I'm paraphrasing here, but he essentially is gobsmacked
Whoa!
at how far backwards our industry is. He said it is of the 19th century.
My gosh!
Yeah.
He's dealt with unions across the globe. He's never encountered the things that we are dealing with.
I want to ask a question I've asked before. Why are we here at the stage of this industry, this glorious, beautiful industry that's
Yeah.
loved by almost every South African?
Yes.
Every single South African reveres and loves this industry and either wants to be in it or just
Yeah.
enjoys it as part of their life experience
Mm.
for the past however many years. But yet it's so backward.
Yeah.
What happened?
Mm.
And again, I'm aware I'm asking a question I've asked before, but clearly there must be a fundamental problem inside.
But if I
That
had an
speaks to
answer for
that.
that, I would be very happy to give you the answer.
Because
I would say we were forgotten, or not were, we are forgotten.
We are forgotten.
Because it is very much the performers who helped transform this very country.
100%.
So
100%.
even if you were to pay, pay homage
Mm.
to the very performers that were vocal, whether it was from a play, a song, a stage thing, a TV thing, whatever it may have been,
Mm.
as the current, GNU, all of that, but as the people that govern our country, how have you paid homage to those very people that helped transform the
Yeah.
country?
Yeah.
I've had Tate Owen Sejake in the studio,
Mhm.
and he speaks with great sadness to that very point.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because he says, when I was a young man, I did nothing else but speak truth to political power on stage.
Mm.
And we used to hide and run away, and they would come and camouflage themselves inside their audience so they can see what we were doing.
Yeah.
But we were trying to get the message out there
Yeah.
that the government we have is not right and what it's doing is not right.
Yeah.
And when you say that, I literally see his face and how sad, when he reflects on that, he speaks with great pain and sadness.
Mm.
That almost very little has happened since then. Like
We've gone backwards.
Yeah, actually.
We've gone backwards. You know, a great living legend, veteran actor said this past week that self-censorship is currently the landscape that we have in our industry. Because where are the artist performers that are calling out our current regime, if I can call it that?
Mm.
Let me have
Because they are also eating.
Let me have an opinion, and as small as it probably irrelevant. Every time I have these moments, I go off the rails. I know, but I'll try. Money is hard to come by, and if I understand your industry well, it's not millions of dollars that are paid to even leading men, leading women.
Yeah.
You cannot say, I made 10 million this year, so I'm good for a little bit. You know, you can't say that. You can't even talk of a million, 1 million. And you're expecting the same person to be vocal and fight for the rights. Help me give you a perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And say this person is saying, how am I going to take my kids to school?
Yeah.
How am I going to pay rent? I need work. One, I don't want to be blacklisted. However that works. Two, I don't want to be the guy who is now on the negative light of how the industry operates with the powers that are sometimes imaginable and unknown. So and I always look at moments like that and say, how do we all wish we could say what we really think?
Oh, yes.
But you're thinking, oh man, I can't because I have my kids to look after.
Yeah.
I have a family to care for.
And I hear that. I think we're also tasked to look at the privilege that we have right now, right? To then say, those that came before me, what challenges did they have and how did they still manage to have somewhat of a voice?
Yeah.
To the point where they would run away, they would camouflage, there has to be a level of sacrifice. Because as much as, yes, we're dealing with stomach politics, there's also the reality that because you're in the industry, probably your offspring will want to be in the industry.
yeah.
Most likely.
And now what are you then bringing them into?
Yeah.
The very example he made about it being for my generation. I have a daughter. The day she says, Papa, I want to be in the TV.
Yeah.
If things are not in a better place than they are for me, there is no way I'm going to encourage her to come into this industry. The very same way my own parents didn't encourage me to come into this industry.
Understandably.
The very same way you're saying, from the outside, people want to be in this industry. So for me, as much as I sympathize with the realities that we're in, especially in the current economy and the state of living and how expensive life is, all of this, I understand it. But at which point do we draw the line and say, yo, I segwanel?
Yeah, enough
Because
now.
when will we cross to the other side where even when you're gone, your family is taken care of?
Yeah. It's
Because
tough,
life is
man.
so short.
Yeah, it is.
But-
it seems long, but it's very short.
But the amount
in
of
hindsight.
but the amount of work that you can do in that short
in that
period
life.
of time
Yeah.
can sustain so many generations.
Very few people get that line attached to their lives.
Yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
Let's talk very quickly about membership. One, the numbers don't generally matter, but what is the size of your membership? And I imagine you would want to grow it so it has more gravitas.
Of course.
What are the dynamics there?
Well, we're looking at, remember, we've got different tiers of membership as well. You got your full member, you got your associate member that comes in once in a while to do something. You have your student members. So all told, we're getting closer to maybe about 750.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's growing. There is a correlation between a spike in membership whenever an industry event is taking place, or as we have now with Bradon's passing, people are more focused on, but what's going to happen to his money? Like, we're going to continue to see him.
But what about his rights?
Where's that going?
Yeah, the
Like,
copyrights.
Will any of that money come to his family, his estate, his children? And when people are reminded of that, suddenly they realize, oh, but then who's gonna fight for this? Am I gonna fight on my own and stand up and be humiliated and blacklisted? And that's when they turn to Saga.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Jeez.
I just want to add on top of that, because of some of the benefits that we provide for our members, like a funeral benefit, most of the time when there is a passing in our industry, one of us will probably get a call or a message to say, hey, was so and so a Saga member?
Really?
Yes. Because at that time, the funeral benefit is a very much needed thing.
Tell me about that a little bit.
So, like mentioned before, we're all actors. We understand what it's like. You can get a lump sum today and not get a lump sum for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But if I can make sure that I've got my Saga membership for the next 3 years, regardless of what happens, I've got access to workshops for free.
I know there's trainings that take place. Yeah.
There's training workshops that keep you sharp. There's networking moments where you can meet with people who you wouldn't generally get to meet, like a casting director or a director, etc. But there's also then the legal aspect of things. There's IMDb, which is an international platform where you're able to advertise yourself and say, hey, this is who I am. This is the work that I've done. If you're looking to work with me, this is how you can do so. There's a discount to that platform. There's avenues that we've created from our benefits, and we're constantly looking for better benefits for our members because these are things that impact us directly. We gain from them as well as the EXCO members because we're on the ground. So with the funeral benefit, you're able to add dependents. It's purely based on what your life is set up like. Yes, it's not like you're going to get hundreds of thousands for the funeral benefit, but at least there's a helping hand to help send you off without leaving your family in a worse state.
Are you getting enough support from the financial institutions? Because it could also be that there's a misunderstanding there of how your industry works.
There is. We describe it as their knowledge of the industry is like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Oh no!
They will have all the products in the world,
except for
they'll say all you have to do as a freelancer is just pay your monthly debit order. And we are saying we don't earn monthly. Which part of this are you not getting?
Yeah.
So I can take all the products. I can have car finance. I can have a home loan. I can have investment products, medical aid, insurance, investment. I can have any of that as long as I'm paying a debit order
monthly,
monthly,
according to the way they see it. Yes,
and they have not grasped the fact that I do not earn on a monthly basis. This is what you call irregular earnings.
Yes.
Typical of the gig economy.
We know it well.
Yeah. And perhaps they or their actuaries haven't seen an interest yet in that more and more and more people year on year are going to be working like we do. And that the traditional employer-employee situation is not going to stay the way it always has. So we are hoping at some point that they are going to get the wake up, except, in the corporate world, while things are going on quite nicely, they don't care.
Absolutely. Look, they are profit-based.
Absolutely.
If they see no money in the sector,
why change?
Why waste their time in it? Because for me, when I listen to you speak now, I ask myself whether the size of the sector is big enough for anyone to invest money in it. If they can insure dogs now, surely we are very close to insuring actors. Not that I'm comparing.
You would hope.
It's a fair comparison, because I'll give you another fair comparison. Who has the right to unionize and to have protection under labor laws? Teachers, nurses, policemen, security guards, petrol pump attendants,
everyone,
domestic workers.
Yes,
right. But we can't.
You can't
make it make sense.
The math is not
mathing.
There we go. First time I use that line, it works. How does one join Saga?
It's very simple. We on our website we have a membership tier, which then describes the different memberships. From the student membership, which is free for all students, the associate membership, which is essentially 70 Rand a month, but we do a yearly annual payment of 850, and then the full membership, which is for the professional actor, which is 160 Rand per month. Or you can do your lump sum payments if that's what you would
160 Rands a month.
Yes.
What do you get for it?
Outside of the funeral plan, the legal assistance and comprehensive legal support, all the way to the magistrate court, to the workshops that we have, the networking sessions that we have, to theatre ticket discounts, to 50% off capital legacy for your will and estate planning. Honestly, for 160 Rand, you're getting way more than what you're paying for.
Which is fully tax deductible, by the way.
Which is fully tax deductible, which if you don't understand what that means, through our workshops with tax practitioners, you're able to understand how to better manage not only your finances, but how to actually do e-filing.
Step by step.
Exactly.
I asked this question very simply, what do you get for 160? Because it sounds little.
It's very little.
Are you guys able to sustain the organization going with so little from the members?
I mean, it's a good thing that we're all volunteers.
Yeah.
That's a great place to start.
You're not getting paid.
We're not getting paid at all.
We have an administrator, and she earns a salary. She is an employee
Yeah.
of Saga's, and the rest of it is our contribution to keep the premiums going as a group for the funeral benefit.
Yeah.
And then you have subscriptions, like you have to be affiliated to the International Federation,
Yes.
stuff like that.
And our retainer with our legal team.
Right.
Phew. So there are clear costs.
Yeah, they
yeah.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be fair. We are demanding that actors must be paid fairly, so we have to pay the people who are working with us also.
What is the leadership structure? How is it placed?
We have 9 exco members. So the executive committee, we've got Hungani and me, Sis Nambita, Colin.
She's done an amazing job of making sure this happens, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
We are
But we have-
grateful.
Yeah.
We have survived as long as we have, and we get stronger and stronger.
Mm.
So we've got the 5 of us in Johannesburg. We've got Londi in KZN, and then we've got 3 in Cape Town.
What is the big dream? If you were to live in a world that you create yourself, and Saga works well, and it's able to really make a difference that you hope for and dream of, how does that world look like? I'll ask both questions.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
both
I
of
would
you.
give a first offer and say that all professional actors are members of Saga
Mm.
as a start.
Mm.
That for me would be a beautiful dream to wake up into reality,
Yeah.
knowing that every single actor that I step onto a set with is a Saga member. Why? Because that means that you value what it is that you do. You're a professional. You take this very seriously, and you care for the greater good of all of us,
Yeah.
not just self. That's number one. Then I can start talking
The
about
laundry list.
pension,
Yeah.
royalties.
Yes,
Yeah, the
of
list
course.
goes on.
Yes.
You know,
No, of course. And that's absolutely right. To be seen as an industry,
yeah,
which means working in a unionized environment where everyone's rights are protected. You've got unions for crew, you've got unions for actors, unions for producers, and everyone has the right to speak to each other respectfully
yeah,
in order to secure your contractual rights, your commercial rights. People must be able to earn royalties. We must be recognized by government. We must be contributing to some kind of a social security plan. And we must be able to engage on equal footing with our international counterparts. And we cannot afford to be continually seen as the backwater third world country, the has-been group, the remnants of what was left from the Rainbow Nation, the forgotten dream of Mandela's children. We have got to realize our potential and stop making excuses and hold our leaders to account. We need to have an active, thriving, and proud creative sector that is proud of our South African stories.
Something you said, and I will draw a conclusion of our conversation on this point. Something you said earlier was about women suffer the most in certain spaces within the sector. And as part of my prep, I remember thinking about diversity issues. And I remember thinking about special attention to different people because they experience this very differently. I remember part of the conversation I had with Vatiso, and I make reference to her, where there was a couch casting moment that almost happened. And she was strong enough and wise enough to run away from. And I always wonder, every society and every moment has a vulnerable sector. And I get a feeling that women are a vulnerable sector in this scenario. And if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. What is your reaction to that generally? Any one of you can take it.
We are deeply concerned
Yeah.
because it is a multi-layered discussion. It also includes entrenched patriarchy and certain cultural norms. And people, because we say this is an unregulated sector, it means we haven't created the forum where we can engage with this, in a grown-up and a mature way. So the discussions at the moment are sitting with the people who are the most vulnerable. And they're trying to raise this as a grievance. But we haven't created a platform for them to speak openly. So again, even as women, as a vulnerable group raising their deepest concerns, they have the risk again of being blacklisted.
There's no platform.
There's no platform. Unregulated, no platform.
And for as long as fear persists, even if I know that you were done wrong and then you speak up, even if I know and I was there, maybe let's say I even witnessed it,
Ooh.
for me to say, yeah, I was there, I saw it, she's not lying, would take so much courage, bravery, boldness, that fear would be something that should not be a part of the conversation. But that is very much part of the conversation. Hence, even if someone was there.
What is the source of the fear?
What are you
scared
it's
of?
not working again?
Yeah.
Or being classified as X, Y, and Z, and that affecting whatever it may affect. Your livelihood, your family's livelihood. So because there are no forums, there's no means for there to be some form of recourse or how things can be managed. Even if I say I support you, what then follows?
Yeah.
Thoughts and
What
prayers.
follows?
Then what?
Then it's just me and you in the same WhatsApp group, and hey,
Yeah.
I still need to work.
Sounds-
Jack has a new show coming next week.
Yeah. Don't forget.
You know?
Wow.
So then you're left by yourself.
Do you know, I am grateful to Bakwena Production for coming here because it has led to this. And this, for me, of the many conversations I've had with actors and those who've come here, I think I should have had this conversation a long time ago.
Sure.
However, I think I needed my own experience of it, to hear it from the guys.
Yeah.
Because most of the stories that I reflect on is stories that I've had literally in this room. And I'm glad I've had that time to hear them and to mull on them and really get a fair grasp of the industry. Because I think yours is extremely misunderstood industry. It's an industry of people who are seen to be living well. An industry of people who, if you appear on TV, you must have money.
Yeah.
You know, we will still hold on to that way of seeing this industry. I've had Baka Haynes here, and he said, no money.
Yeah.
The older you get no gigs.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you get. It's old actors don't work. That's the statement he made.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh no, that's not right.
Yeah.
We see your Morgan Freemans acting until they are 100.
Yeah.
Surely there must be something. I saw a movie by what's his name? Is it Al Pacino? Or the no, I lie. Who's the other one?
Robert De Niro.
Say it's the other one. And Robert De Niro acts 2 parts in one movie. It's just got released now.
Yeah. I
You
saw
know,
that, yeah.
he's doing both the good and the bad guy.
Sure.
And I remember thinking, this is interesting. And here we have an industry that doesn't employ old actors.
Yeah.
But you're mentioning a very top 1%.
Yeah.
How many other old actors are there?
Because I'm talking about the cream.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine the second grade, so to speak.
Yeah, the B actors.
The B actors.
Then there's the C, the D, the E.
Background.
Sure. Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you. This has been very educational for me. I have a far better grasp of it now. And I wish you well. I wish we get a 5-year term of a president who gets it and a leadership both in labor and also in arts who really gets it.
Yeah.
And who would put together a commission of inquiry that ends up with a solution.
Sure.
And that solution turns a bill into an act.
Yes.
And it all happens.
Yeah.
Because it seems like we're not far, but we're just not getting there yet.
Yeah, you're right. We're missing something.
Yeah.
But, moments like this help us a lot. So thank you.
You're most welcome. That's why I say, let's thank Bakwena Productions.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
to
I'd
them.
like to leave you with something.
Tell me.
So one of our membership tiers is called a Patreon member.
Okay.
Patreon member is an individual who believes in what Saga is doing. And I would
They're not necessarily actors.
They're not actors.
Okay.
We've got some agents that are Patreon members, some casting directors,
Got you.
some mothers and fathers of actors,
Okay.
you know.
Yes.
And I would-
me. I'm a supporter of the industry.
Hence-
almost automatically.
Hence,
Yep.
I put it on your table to consider becoming a Saga patron member.
More than happy to
It
do
would be
it.
an honor.
Let me make a commitment here
Amazing.
that I'm now. All I have to do is just do the application.
Thank you.
A member of Saga, a patron member of Saga.
Thank you.
I have to be, man. Your industry has done a lot for my channel. Your industry is the backbone of this channel. It has made it the success that a lot of people see it to be. And I will always be grateful for the people that I've spoken to in this room who have given me their time, their stories.
Yeah.
Some I haven't published yet. Your Magic Tlatswayo's
Wow.
episode hasn't gone out yet.
Sure.
Your Desmond Dube's episode hasn't gone out
Oh,
yet.
that must be an episode.
You know what I
and
mean?
a half.
It's a 5-hour episode. Your Nimrod Nkosi's episode hasn't gone out yet. There are many of them whom I've had the privilege of sitting with in this room and talk about their life stories. And
Yeah.
my goal is simple. We have to keep the stories somewhere. There has to be this depository of these stories.
Agreed.
And that's really what I've created. And it always flares up again in moments where a legend has passed on.
Yeah.
And when people page through and search his name, they find a 3-hour, 40-minute conversation that I've had with them.
Yeah.
Like the amazing Pradon Mlange now, who's recently passed on, and people are saying, whoa, you did that.
Yeah.
And I did it for no other reason but to keep the story somewhere. And I like it when it's the owners of the story who tell it.
Yeah.
They tell it the way they want.
Yeah.
It always breaks my heart when they come here and cry, but they
Sure,
all
sure.
do. At some point, something breaks their
That's
heart.
part of the story as well, though, you know. So.
Yeah. And because with Pradon, he makes reference to why he left Isitingo. He talks about it.
Mm.
And interesting, it forms part of what you guys fight for.
Yeah.
He says, suddenly there was a brand
Yeah.
I had to represent on the show.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's not in my contract.
No, exactly.
Suddenly I had to talk
Yeah.
about a brand I know nothing about. And it's not in my contract. The channel is saying we have to, producers are saying we have to, but wait a minute.
Yeah.
What am I getting for it?
But you see, even if it was in your contract, would you be able to negotiate it?
Yeah. Yeah. And if they make it impossible for you, remember in the working world as an employee, that's what's called constructive dismissal.
Mm.
He would have been able to dispute that and take it to the CCMA. All of that would have been laid out for him. As a freelancer, you have none of that.
As a freelance actor, you definitely have zero.
Zero.
And course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Whoa, we've learned a lot today, I'll tell you. Thank you. Following a conversation with Bakwena Productions, we got a number of emails from people who wanted a right of reply. And we felt it's only fair that we allow them that opportunity. And one of those people is Brendan Auret. What you're about to hear is a conversation I had with Brendan Auret. We were not in the same room. However, he responds to some of these questions.
Hello, David. Thanks for allowing me to come onto your show and to have the right to respond to what Kagiso and Rush happened to say about me, not just as an actor, but as a performer in this industry. I have sent your production people all the evidence. I've sent a contract that was signed by me, which they claim I didn't sign. I sent you my bank statements to show you that they didn't pay me 2 days before the show ended. They paid me 2 weeks into the actual production. And the reason I threatened to walk off is because my contract very clearly stated that there was a 50% upfront payment and then a 50% payment on conclusion, which would have been on the 26th of September. 2 weeks into the shoot, they still hadn't paid. I then threatened to walk off because, and just as a side note, they hadn't signed my contract 2 weeks into production. My contract was signed, and I have sent that to you to have a look at. They were supposed to, so that was, then they paid me that 50% because I did threaten to walk off because they were in breach of contract, a contract that they never signed, as I've stated. They then on the 26th, payment was supposed to come through. We were told on the 25th that payment was definitely coming through on the 26th. I got a call on the Monday from Kagiso telling me that, you know, he's sorry. Hey, my king, I'm so sorry. We've run into problems. It's the channel that hasn't paid. I then got hold of Modupe at the head channel, and he told me that they had paid everything. And I went back to Kagiso to ask him what the truth was. I then got hold of Rush. And I sent you that conversation that I recorded between me and Rush, saying very clearly, Rush, what's going on? What's happening with the payments? And that conversation then happened. So if they had paid me 2 weeks or 2 days before the show ended, surely I would have had nothing to talk to them about or had any arguments or any leg to stand on with the arguments that I was having. The smear campaign that they talk about, there were 2 articles that came out before I got involved. And the only thing that I stated on my Instagram page was, Kagiso, you've claimed at the SAFTAs that you pay your people, yet you have an entire crew waiting to be paid. You promised to pay us in 2 days' time. I await. I was then invited onto a WhatsApp group by the crew. 52 people were on that WhatsApp that had not been paid yet. There were things said and things done by everyone on that group. There was a letter that was sent out to all of us to post on our Instagram saying that we deserve to be paid. I then got my lawyer involved because they hadn't paid me. They hadn't paid me for any. They had only paid me 50% of what they owed me. And that actually, in terms of legalities, means that I still own the intellectual property that I'd shot. So I got my lawyer to get involved to tell them that they were no longer allowed to show the series or the episodes that I'd shot because they hadn't paid me for my intellectual property. So them saying that they paid me 2 days before the show ended is a lie. I did send you my bank statements. You'll see on the 2nd of November and the 28th of December is when I received my final payment.
In a conversation we had with Bakwena Productions, they indicated that you were given some kind of special treatment when they appointed you to come and work for them, whereabout they allowed you, to move from Cape Town to Johannesburg and made it easy for you to be in Johannesburg. And this was done at their cost as a company. What is your response to that?
The question about whether or not I got special treatment when I was in Joburg. When I was in Joburg and I was doing a shoot in Cape Town, they fly you down. I hadn't spoken to Kagiso at any point during my audition or anything that happened. I auditioned, I sent my tape to my agent. My agent sent it off to them. They said, yes, they want me in the show. They then made a call for me to come through to do a stills day, to take all the stills for the show. And I explained to them that I was in Cape Town and not in Joburg. To my agent, I still hadn't spoken to Kagiso. My agent does all the conversations. I don't talk to production. That's why I have an agent. She's been my agent for 30 years, and we have done pretty well as a team. We then agreed, because for so long there was miscommunication as to where the shoot was happening. I had no idea. My agent then phoned to me and said to me, because the production has such a tight budget, would I be willing to litigate the clause in the contract that states that they would pay me on the days that I fly? So what happens is in the film and TV industry, if I'm in Cape Town and I'm being flown to Joburg, you pay me for the days that I fly. Those are considered work days. You pay me half of what my call rate is. So we got rid of that clause. They didn't pay me for the days that I traveled. They say that I was treated with exception because I was flown up and down to Joburg and Cape Town. The reason we discussed the up and down flights, it worked out cheaper for the production to fly me to Joburg, to Cape Town, to Joburg, to Cape Town on the days that I wasn't shooting, because if on the days that I do shoot, they would have had to pay me half of my call rate anyway. And I was off a lot more on the show than what I was on. So in those 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks that we were shooting, they would have had to pay me for the days that I stayed in Joburg, which is why we agreed that they would fly me to Cape Town because it worked out a lot cheaper for production. So they forget to tell you that. They forget to tell you that I litigated all of those things, all those clauses to help them out. Not special treatment. I went out of my way to make sure that they had an advantage by having me on their show, not the other way around, because the rule says very clearly, if you're flying me, you're paying me. If I'm staying in a different city or a different town, you pay me for the days that I don't work. That didn't happen. There were 3 days that I stayed there in between a shoot, because generally I would fly back on the weekend and come and shoot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, fly back Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And there were 3 days. I was going to shoot on the Monday, and then the Tuesday, Wednesday, and the Thursday, I wasn't going to shoot, and I was going to shoot on the Friday. So I stayed for those 3 days in Joburg, and they paid me for it. So special treatment is not special treatment. That's just standard behavior in the industry.
As we speak today, has Bakwena Productions paid you?
Yeah. So has Bakwena paid me? Yeah, they have paid me. I made it very clear in the voiceover or the message that I sent you, David, or to your production, the conversation that I recorded between me and Shakes. I said to them, pay me, and I go away, because number one, I was the only. They made it a racial thing. It's not a racial thing. I was the only white actor that was involved in that series that had a sub lead or a supporting lead character. The 5 main actors all got paid. That's why there was nothing said by them. Actors generally are cowards and very scared to step up and say anything.
Have you ever been owed money by a production company before?
In this industry, it's not the first time that this has happened. It's not the second time that this has happened. It's not the third time that this has happened. This thing of non-payment or late payment in the industry has become standard. When I was doing Hansi Cronje, the production went into liquidation and we got paid out. At least we got paid out, I think 12 cents to the rand. I then did a movie called The Racist, who also didn't pay me. I was very young. I didn't understand why this was going. I think it was like my 3rd film. I wasn't quite sure what it was, and I was new, and I didn't know how to handle this. And that movie is out, and the director and the producers have never worked again, purely because of the fact that there were things said about them and how they handled the situation. Then I did a movie called The Lullaby with the Frauensteins, whatever, I don't even know, the Frauensteins. Again, week 1, invoice, no payment. Week 2, invoice, no payment. Week 3, invoice, no payment. So we got to the last day of the shoot. It was the beginning of the film. They needed to have me there. And I just said very clearly, I'm not coming onto set because you haven't paid me. You're in breach of contract. You have not paid me. I got paid to be on there that day. A whole bunch of actors, after the show had been produced and edited and was being flighted, wherever it was being flighted, had still not been paid. I see the red flags. Now, I've been in the industry for 30 years. And when someone says to you, oh, no, can you change this on the invoice? Sorry, we need you to do this on the invoice. Every time you send an invoice, that's a red flag. And my 2nd week into Pound for Pound, I had not been paid yet. There was no discussion about my payments. I made it very clear to them and to my agent that something was going on. There was a red flag, and I was not going to ignore it this time, which is why I threatened to walk off set.
And how did this delayed payment affect your life?
Unfortunately, in the industry that is not protected by government or by any laws, they keep telling us that, that we are freelancers, but we get treated as employees. Not getting paid. This is how it works. We, as actors and producers and directors, we live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. I might be working on a film now, but I'm already auditioning and preparing for the next film that's going to happen or the next series that's going to happen. So when I do a show and I know that I'm getting paid 150,000 Rand for that show, I know that 150,000 Rand will see me through however X amount of months. And it's not, I don't just act. I have a consulting company that I run. And I do a lot of MC work, and I have a 2-piece band that I do, and I go do corporate functions. So I'm always working. I'm always busy. You can't sustain yourself in this industry if you're just acting, believe me. And if you are, then you're in a soap opera. That's the only way that you can work month to month and make money, is if you're in a daily soap. So it has an effect on everybody, because I know for a fact that if I've earned 150,000 Rand, that for the next 3 months, I don't have to worry about anything. And in those 3 months, I can start looking for other work. Or if I haven't got work, I prepare myself to make sure that there is other work that's happening. But when you tell me you're going to pay me 150,000 Rand and I'm starting to prepare for work and that money hasn't come through, now I'm back a month. Now I'm back 2 months. Now I'm back 3 months. So when I do get paid, I've got 3 months worth of payment to make up. And that's not fair. It's not fair. It's called a compound effect. And that happens in our industry all the time. So this is why I stood up for the crew. This is why I made my voice available to the crew, and why I stepped up for everybody, because I was not going to allow this to happen. I also sent you a message with one of the crew members that called me. And the reason why I started being the voice for whatever happened and stepping up and calling Kagiso and Rush out, when you listen to that conversation that I had with that production person, and when they are in tears and crying because they're going to not be able to pay rent, and that they can't afford to lose the place that they're in because they don't want to move back to where they came from, and this is where they want to be because this is where the work is, and they're in tears and they have nowhere to go and they don't have anyone to turn to. I suppose I became the white voice, the racist white voice for all the black crew and production that were there, because everybody's too scared to say anything because they might just be blacklisted. I don't care about being blacklisted. Kagiso and Rush claim that they revived my career. How? How have you revived my career? So in 2019, I shot Still Breathing. In 2019, I won Best Actor at the SAFTA Awards. So between 2019 and 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, that's 5 years, number one, that I didn't do any TV. I don't do TV series. And this is the reason why I don't do TV. This is the reason I stay away from South African series, because this happens all the time. It's happened with Queendom. It's happened with a whole bunch of other shows that are happening where the producers don't pay the actors or don't pay the crew. Since 2017 and 2025, I've shot 9 films. By all means, go and check out my IMDb. You can go see the films that I've shot. Rebel Moon, Bird Boy, London Calling, a shark film that I shot, Sniper. No career was revived. I only did Pound for Pound because when I read the script and my agent gave me the breakdown of what it was, I thought this is a very interesting show. And it would have gotten a second season. It would have gotten a third season. It would have gotten a fourth season. And they want to blame me because they didn't do what they said they were going to do? No. Kagiso and Rush are playing victim now because they got called out. And had they been honest and said to us, we don't have money, we overspent, please, would you mind? Absolutely, dude. I totally get it. But don't lie to me and tell me that you're going to pay me next week and then next week doesn't happen. Don't lie to me and say to me that BET hasn't paid. When I phoned the head of BET and I spoke to Modupe and I said to him, listen, this is what they said about you. And he says to me, no, they've paid. They've made their payments. And then Kagiso still says to me, oh, so I guess you've chosen sides. Yes, I've chosen sides. I chose my side. I did my work and you need to pay me. And had he come out and said, I'm sorry, we don't have the money, we will make it up to you, we are just trying to get the money sorted out, instead of blaming everybody else and not actually taking responsibility for their actions, I think things would have been very, very different. But they didn't do that. They kept promising and promising and promising, and they are adamant that they paid me when I've sent through my bank details to your show. And I would love it if you would play the message that Rush and I had. Because if they had paid me, why would I still be asking Rush for money? And why would Rush be telling me that he's going to try and make a plan to get me paid as quickly as possible? I said to them very clearly, pay me, I'll go away. They paid me in December, I went away. They started this again because they need to save face. Bottom line.
And as far as you know, with regards to this particular production, are there other artists that were affected directly that you know of?
I do still know people that are owed. They owed bits and pieces, 25,000 Rand here, 15,000 Rand there. Sipho, which is one of the I think he rented cars out to it, he's owed something like 147,000 Rand. I know that SAG has got all of those invoices as well for the background actors as well. So, but I've been paid and I went away. They brought this up again because they needed someone to blame, someone to accuse for their inability to step up to the plate and take responsibility for something that they did. And that person is me. So they're trying to get me blacklisted, trying to put my name out there and smear my name. Go ahead, brother. Not scared of it. I've been in the industry far too long and I've got way too much of a good reputation in the film industry for you guys to have any kind of a sort of an effect on me. I have 63 feature films under my belt. And yeah, I'm a very professional when it comes to what I do for a living. I don't take the industry very seriously, but I take what I do very seriously. And I take getting paid very seriously because like I said to Rush in that voice message or that conversation that we had, I'm a dad first. I'm not an actor first. Acting is what I do to earn money. I'm a dad first. And if you are taking away my ability to provide for my family because you screwed up, I'm coming after you. I'm going to come after you with thunder. I'm going to come after you with lightning. And I'm just going to say this as well. I did say to Rush at the beginning of that conversation, this is not about revenge. This is not about me not liking Kagiso or Rush. I don't like them now because I think they're a bunch of cowards. But that conversation started off like this. Let me just explain to you something very clearly, Rush. I loved working on the show. I loved working with Kagiso. I think Kagiso is an incredibly talented director. He's an incredibly good actor. But that's where it ends with me. You know, they were always on set, you legend. It's so nice to have a legend on our show. Welcome, King. Welcome, my King. Welcome. Take your words and shove them where it belongs. Let me do my job. Pay me, and I'll move on to the next gig. Don't come and try and filter all of this crap that's going on with words to compliment me or to try and make the situation that we're in a little bit easier. I loved working with him. I think Kagiso is incredibly talented. I have nothing to say about Rush. I think he's just he's hanging on Kagiso's tailcoats. He's got nothing to offer other than, I don't know. He said his dad's in the government. But it's nothing personal. I've got nothing against them. Nothing personal. They paid me. I did my job. Did they have a problem with the way I did my job? I don't think so. Now that BET in America is fighting the show, and it's like, I think it's number 1 or number 2 in the United States, my question to them is, my contract says very clearly that if the show leaves the borders of South Africa, that you will pay me my residuals, Kagiso. Mr. I pay residuals. I'm waiting for you to pay me my residuals.
What else do you feel people should know about this entire experience with lack of payments and all of that from your perspective? What else do you feel it is not properly known?
I've got no issues with Bakwena Productions. I've got no issues with Rush. I have no issues with Kagiso. Bottom line is they paid me. I had to wait for my money. I had to get my lawyer involved. There was by December, there were like 65 or 70 people that were on that WhatsApp group. That I didn't start that WhatsApp group. There were 2 articles that came out before I was asked about my opinion. I went and stated my opinion about how I felt about what was happening with the non-payment. With nobody else. That thing was, I did it on my own. And only when I did that, did Kaya, who was the camera operator, the DOP, come to me and say to me, listen, you're not the only one. It's an entire crew that hasn't been paid. I went onto the WhatsApp group, looked at what everybody was saying, realized that we've all been told the same story. You're going to get paid today. You're going to get paid next week. The process of payment is happening today. Please make sure all of your invoices are in. And we're like, wow, but my invoice was in at the beginning of the show already. And very clearly, if you look at it, my contract stated very clearly, very, very, very clearly, because we didn't sign the contract that they sent. We sent them a contract, a standard contract for film and TV. You pay me 50% up front, you pay me 50% on conclusion. They didn't sign the contract. I've sent you that contract. You're more than welcome to show it to your viewers, all those naysayers who turn around and say, I should be blacklisted and they're never going to work with me. I don't care. I don't do a lot of South African stuff. I'm an international actor. I just happen to live in this country. Out of all the films that I've done, out of the 67 films that I've done, maybe 10 are South African. That's all I have to say. Any more questions? Feel free. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of little messages down at the bottom of the video, your little comment section. Please, by all means, I love commenting. I love taking people on, especially when they're wrong. But thank you, David. Thank you, your audience, Jack. You guys are doing great work with the South African Guild of Actors. I know that I've also been asked to go on and be on the board of the South African Guild of Actors. Maybe it's because I've got a voice, and maybe it's because I don't keep my mouth shut, and maybe I care too much about how this industry treats its workers. But I do care. I do care about the people that work, especially when you work with people that work so hard. 3 weeks to shoot a series that should have been done over maybe 2 months, shooting 16, 17 scenes a day. Nobody bitched and moaned. We all did it. We all did it because we wanted Kagiso and the show to get a second season. Why not get a second season? Get a third season. Get a fourth season. It's not my fault. It's your fault. You screwed up, Kagiso. You screwed up, Rush. You need this white face, this racist face that you say I am, to blame. It's not about racism. This is about right and wrong, not black and white. And right and wrong doesn't know any color. So don't make this what it isn't. But I wish them all the best for the future. And I hope that they've learned a lesson. I hope that they have learned something out of this little scenario that happened. Yeah, all the best. See you out there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
King David Studio Podcast.